All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us here today. I intend for this to be our wrap-up press conference, so we can tell you a little bit about what we saw, what's going on now, but also what we saw, what we did, and what we learned. So let me just say a little bit about the status of the storm right now. There's not a lot to report, except that we'll continue to have gusts of up to 40 miles per hour in the next couple of days. And so with gusts of that speed, we should be on the lookout again for dangling limbs and other things that might blow around. The more important precaution concerns the tidal action. We have had, as you've all noticed over the last few days, some very high tides, astronomically high tides, that will continue to occur even though the storm surge has subsided. So I caution everyone to continue to refrain from walking up to the shoreline to check things out. Let me tell you a little bit about the status of power outages. As of last night, we had 4,009 New Bedford customers, NSTAR customers without power. It's down to about 1,600 this morning. We've had between 30 and 40 tree incidents, trees falling on wires, trees falling in streets and so forth, and we're picking up all those trees as we speak. We have had a couple of road closures, but by and large, the roads in New Bedford are wide open. We've got a couple of areas, Padenham Avenue, Brownell Avenue, and some side streets that continue to be blocked, and we anticipate that those will be opened up in the next couple of days, if not sooner. Let me tell you a little bit about the shelters. So our two shelters at the Pilgrim Church on Purchase Street, as well as the Keith Middle School shelter, had a total of 45 people staying over last night, and virtually everyone has left at this point. There are 11 people left at Keith. These are the people who were displaced as a result of the chimney falling down onto an apartment building on Penniman Street. And we are working with the Red Cross to place those people. Today, schools remain closed, as I announced yesterday evening. City offices do as well, so that includes the zoo, the library, the senior centers, and so forth. They're all opening up tomorrow. They're safe. Schools are safe to attend. City offices will be back up and running. I noticed as I walked over here that some folks are showing up with their tax payments for the month. Please, we're not going to dock you if you show up with your tax payment late. Stay home. Come in tomorrow with the check. That's great. We appreciate it. And again, there are a handful of precautions. Stay out away from the water. If you see a down line, and we think we've got a beat on just about everyone, but if you see a down line, call 911 so we can get onto it as quickly as possible. Again, watch out for limbs. If you are without power, there are certain steps that you need to take to avoid fires. First of all, don't use kerosene lamps, use battery-powered lighting, flashlights, and the like. Keep grills and generators outside. We don't want people becoming asphyxiated with carbon monoxide. If you have property damage, make sure you get out and take pictures of the property. You may have a viable insurance claim, so now's the time to break out your smartphone, take some good pictures so that you have the damage documented. Halloween, tomorrow. I'm not going to be the Grinch to cancel Halloween. I think we're good to go. So kids should get out there and enjoy Halloween as they usually would. Let me do a couple things. Before I call up certain department heads to give specific updates, and then we've been joined by Senator Kerry and Congressman Keating. We really appreciate their presence, and I'll ask them to come on up and offer some remarks. I just wanted to offer a couple of comments about the response. I think everybody agrees that we dodged a bullet. This gigantic storm took a crazy left turn in the mid-Atlantic. Had it followed a more ordinary track, we'd be having a very different conversation right now. It was headed right this way otherwise. So we're thankful that that didn't come to pass. That said, we had what I think was a very terrific response to what was a serious weather event. Call it a tropical storm here, call it the perimeter or the margins of a hurricane, whatever it was. This is something that posed a real hazard to New Bedford and the surrounding region, and I think our citizens can be proud that the city government responded very well. I want to thank in particular the Salvation Army and for Tremblay Bus Company for offering their services in a time of need. I think we responded well. The city in general responded well for a number of reasons. First, we had great support from our federal and state partners along the way. We worked very closely, for instance, with the National Weather Service and had some really good information provided to us in a very timely way that allowed us to plan where we should deploy our resources. That was very important. I think it helps in a city to have a mayoral form of government as opposed to what we see in the other communities, which is town councils and select boards. It allows for more unified management of the situation and decision making. So that helps too. Our citizens have been terrific. They've been through weather events in the past, and they're very sensible about it. But most of all, I want to thank the employees of the City of New Bedford and especially the department heads for very well managing this event and the response to the event. We met regularly, we communicated very well, and they performed very well. And we've had no major injuries. Our roads, as we speak the day after, are almost entirely open. People are safe, and nobody panicked. And so the reason I raise this is that there's, as both Senator Kerry and Congressman Keating can attest, there's an ongoing debate at every level of government about government's role in American life, and that plays out also at the local level. But having high-performing public servants like we have here in New Bedford really matters. In a time of need, under pressure, they excelled. They performed very, very well, and they brought great credit to this city. And so I'm very proud to say that I'm their boss, and they deserve a tremendous amount of credit for that. And frankly, we are in a position right now where we have a standing offer to nearby communities to help them as well. And we've extended that offer to a number of them, and we are ready to jump in. So with all that, let me call a few of them up to give you a little bit of detail about where things stand. Let me begin with Mark Mahoney, our Emergency Management Director, who will tell us a little bit about weather conditions and power outages and miscellaneous other considerations that we should know right now. Mark, you want to come up?
Thank you, Mayor. As the mayor mentioned, we've seen a decrease in the number of power outages since last night, which is a good thing. Throughout the storm and actually throughout the recovery process, we have and will continue to maintain regular contact with NSTAR. It's been a very good communication link that we have with them. We've identified priorities throughout the storm that needed to be taken care of, and actually this morning we've identified a handful of priorities: critical care customers, critical facilities, lines that need to be cleared so we can open up a couple of roadway areas, and they're working on those diligently. So that interaction will continue through the recovery process and making sure they're aware of what we know to be priorities. And as far as the public goes, as far as the safety issues go, if anybody runs across a down utility line, please assume it's live and report that to NSTAR at 1-800-592-2000. The mayor's addressed the shelter issue. That went extremely well. The city operated that shelter, and as the mayor said, we're working with the American Red Cross on providing services to those people from the Penniman Street apartment, as well as our health department and inspectional services departments working on that issue. And that's all I have.
Great. Thank you, Mark. Thank you. All right, let me ask our port director, Jeff Stieb, to come up to tell us about the conditions on the port right now and the status of the port. Jeff?
Following a storm, the Coast Guard routinely goes out and conducts an assessment of all the aids navigation the buoys in all their locations, and they have a tremendous area to cover from Narragansett Bay to the other side of Cape Cod Canal, and they're doing that right now. They've reported that inside New Bedford Harbor we're good. Inside New Bedford Harbor is open. The tugs are moving their oil barges around, fueling vessels. Fishing vessels are free to move to get ice or whatever. However, Buzzards Bay is not yet open by the Coast Guard. They have not completed their assessment. They are working vigorously and diligently to do so, and they'll report when Buzzards Bay and Narragansett Bay are open.
Great, thank you, Jeff. All right, let me call our Fire Chief Mike Gomes and our EMS Chief Mark McGraw up to report on the level of service that they provided during the storm, especially emergency runs.
Good morning. New Bedford EMS did about 40 calls yesterday. We had a extra ALS, Advanced Life Support Ambulance, on to help out with the uptick of calls. That's a little bit more than we normally do. And the private sector, which I just found out, did about 10 to 12 calls to back us up yesterday. And we're back at normal operating procedures this morning. Michael?
Thanks.
Good morning. The fire department processed approximately 120 calls between 10 a.m. and approximately 10 p.m., which is extremely high call volume for us, especially in the period around 2:30 to 4:30. We had every single piece of equipment in the field. Things went very well. We had a number of different types of incidents that happened around the city and on the waterfront, and then we had staged a number of equipment and personnel in the south end in case any of the low-lying areas had to be evacuated. So we were prepared. This is our second storm that we've had in approximately 14 months, and with practice, things went very well. So we're standing by, and if anyone finds any wires out there beside the NSTAR number, 911 is also a number you can call for any suspected live wires. And also, as the mayor said, be cognizant of the fact we're in the second phase now where you're without power. Please take those precautions so that we don't have any other incidents. Thank you very much.
Let me call our Commissioner of Public Infrastructure up, Ron Labelle, to talk about the status of the wastewater treatment plant, the water treatment plant, and cemeteries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All of our major utilities fared well during the event. Corticus went on standby power. That's our water treatment plant out in Freetown for about 6 hours. About 8 of our 32 pumping stations are on standby power, and we have portable generators where they all were online, so there were no problems with our distribution or our collection system. Our wastewater treatment plant, I mean, we really skipped a bullet here. We only got about a ½ inch of rain, so there was very little activity at the wastewater treatment plant. It was almost like, you know, a typical flow pattern for the city. We had about 20 crews out last night working with the DPW guys, helping with trees and cleanup, and all of our crews are moving today to, you know, keep streets open and keep everything moving forward. Thank you.
Water quality as well?
Well, water quality wasn't affected whatsoever. Typically, a storm like this won't affect water quality, so that's really not an issue. Our watershed areas and our ponds are very well protected. Everything on the infrastructure side is faring very well.
Right.
Thank you, Mayor.
Right. Thanks, Ron. All right. Well, we're pleased to have Senator Kerry here today, and you know, Senator, it's great that you've shown up. It's great that not just that you're here, but that you have supported the kinds of response mechanisms from the federal government that help make this go very well in New Bedford. National Weather Service, FEMA, all these agencies that we sort of see in the background until it really counts, until we have a crisis. And so, you know, we thank you for your support now and then, and continuing to make us able to respond as well as we could and to ensure public safety. We have, by the way, a little something for you here.
Proving my
So we just, this is a much better look. You know, you look so much better in black than you do in red, but
That's
you know,
fantastic.
yeah, it's your size too. It looks good.
Change right into it.
Well, if you want, yeah, we'll put this. We'll.
You want to hold on there? Yeah.
Senator.
I trust that's within the ethics committee.
Oh, it is. It's $19. That's what it is.
Anyway, let me begin. I want to congratulate, first of all, the citizens citizens of New Bedford, the citizens of the region and of Massachusetts, because people did the things that they were asked to do. And with a couple of exceptions here and there, people stayed out of danger. They helped the communities to be able to respond, and that is so important, to be able to be prepared and to let the emergency people do what they need to do. Yesterday, I was at the bunker in Framingham with all of our emergency response personnel, and again this morning I was there. And it's an understatement to say that we were lucky and dodged a bullet here. 14-foot surge in New York. Their subways are flooded. They've had major transformer explosions. Millions of people without power. Railroad cars were moved out of one depot right onto the New Jersey Turnpike. I mean, it's extraordinary. And the power of these storms, nobody can underestimate. The second group I want to congratulate is Mayor Mitchell and all of the department heads and all of you who are part of the team here. This is a team effort. And what struck me in Framingham, and what struck me, I just came from Dartmouth, where I was part of their emergency meeting council there, which is now going to disband because of what the situation is, the sort of good side of the situation, is everybody coordinated really, really effectively. The mayor has offered leadership. Everybody's done their jobs. And it really does underscore how important it is to have the people in place and the resources available to be able to respond. Tragically, we're going to see more of these storms. I hate to say that to you at this point in time, but it's just a reality. The intensity of the weather systems has sparked in the last 10 years. We're seeing it all across the country. The amount of emergency money that we're spending federally is up significantly. And so we need this capacity. And it does speak to what the mayor said about some of the philosophical commitments people need to make, choices we make about governing. The final comment I'll make is that we need to make certain as we go forward that we learn the lessons that sort of stared at us as we looked at what could have been worse. You know, do we have the backup communications necessary? Are we really ready to deal with what might have happened with larger power outages and other kinds of problems? And so I think a review process is in order after all of this, and I'm sure the mayor and others will agree with me that we need to really take stock as we go forward. But we can count our blessings here in Massachusetts. We're tough people in Massachusetts, and New Bedford particularly. With the fishing industry and the risks people take when they go out to sea and everything, we're no strangers to tragedy or to challenge. But the bottom line is that everybody rose to the occasion here. We did well, and you know, we have minor inconveniences. Now, the one thing I do want to say about the federal government, we have a federal team on place in Framingham. There are flights taking place right now, the Civil Air Patrol, which will be photographing the entire coastline. So we will be making a federal assessment of any damage that may or may not rise to a level that triggers emergency funding from Washington. That emergency declaration has already been made. So if there is damage to that effect, wherever it may be, we will make that assessment and that will be available. And the second thing is on small businesses. If there's been small business disruption, and that disruption is definable and accountable and provable in any way, small business loans can be available at very, very low interest rate in order to help people over any kind of hard period that they may have. So that will also be one of the things that we'll make available, and my staff will be available working with Congressman Keating to do what we can to make sure the federal response, if there is any necessary. The blessing of this storm is you may not need that federal input. And I'd certainly take that side of it than the other. So we'll see where we are. But Mayor, thank you. I'm glad to visit again, and we're delighted to see the response of everybody here. You all can take a lot of pride in your preparations and in the efficiency with which you carried out responsibilities. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Senator. Yeah, and I appreciate your point about the review process. I mean, it really is necessary, and I hasten to add that this isn't an exercise in issuing a self-congratulatory statement on the part of city government. We will do, are scheduling a military-style after-action review in which we'll take a hard look at the things that we did well and the things that we didn't do so well, and how we can improve upon them. And, the things I notice off the bat is, there are ways of enhancing communication. That's sort of a high-level area of improvement. Communication can always be improved. Even mundane things like making sure there are board games at shelters, because kids get bored in the B-O-R-E-D sense, and we didn't have board games set up until later on. So little stuff like that counts too. So we can always get better, and we will strive to do that. I can tell you one thing that we didn't prepare for, and this is on me, and that is I didn't get Congressman Keating a jacket. So we owe you one, Congressman, but we're happy you're here. And Congressman Keating is about to become our new congressman for this district, and he is already well acquainted with New Bedford and its needs, and is getting up to speed, and the support is already there. So we appreciate your being here today. And Bill, if you'd offer a couple words.
First thing people worry about at the federal level is where's the money going to come from, when's it going to be there, and our congressional delegation led by Senator Kerry on Sunday secured that commitment from FEMA. So that was very swift action, and it just created a great confidence for state and local governments going forward. So I'll mention to you, save your receipts, save all your receipts as well as there, because that'll help that process. I think the preparation for this storm really began to accelerate even in 2010 with the inadequacies that were there in the response to the last major storm we had. And you could see the effect of that planning that has gone on at a regular basis come into place here. We're so grateful that it's not a greater liability and not a greater task ahead of us in terms of the repair, but the preparation was there. Homeland Security, the committee that I'm the ranking member of on oversight, we looked at different disasters, and we see what goes on correctly, and we see what is incorrect. One of the key areas we find time and time again is the lack of coordination among federal, state, local governments, the nonprofits that are involved, as well as even civil defense, local volunteers that are involved, emergency management people. All of that has to be seamless as possible. You can see from the mayor's presentation here how well-oiled that was here, how they worked together as a group and what they were ready for. And fortunately, we don't have to worry about some of the things that, unfortunately, and they're in our prayers, the rest of the people in the country are facing right now in the East Coast, in New Jersey, New York, and that area, Delaware. So we look at what we've done. And I do think this city, with the coastal threats and surges that were forecast, we're ready as much as humanly possible. And I want to just say good job. And remember, I think Vince Lombardi said that failure to prepare is to prepare to fail. This city was prepared, and so I think people should realize that. Thank you.
I'd also like to acknowledge the support of our city council, who has made sure year in and year out the departments that participated in this exercise and made people safe were appropriately funded. And that's not an easy thing to do in this day and age. I mean, we stretch our budget dollars further and further with each fiscal year. And so I want to thank in particular the three city councilors who are here today: City Council President Steve Martins, Ward 1 Councilor Jim Oliveira, and Ward 3 Councilor Henry Bousquet. I think that's it right now. And I would ask City Council President Steve Martins to come on up and offer his remarks. Steve.
Thank you, Mayor. First, we believe that everything has been said from Senator Kerry and Congressman Keating and Mayor Mitchell. We appreciate, and we say it so often, but so often we have to keep repeating ourselves and thank our police, our fire, our emergency personnel, our city staff who have worked throughout the clock to ensure that even though the storm was lessened and we've gotten the lesson of Hurricane Sandy, that we were prepared to take in the full burden of this hurricane. And that was the leadership of Mayor Mitchell, who really gathered everyone together in one room and made sure that all of us were on the same page and moving forward, that once this hurricane hit, that we were well prepared. And as the citizens who are watching this press conference at home and people who are here today, you've seen that teamwork happen here throughout the city. I also want to thank Senator Kerry and Congressman Keating, who have already worked in ensuring that we have the aid that we need. And certainly, as Congressman Keating has said, we will certainly save those receipts and send them your way to ensure that we get the monies that we need to ensure that our city can keep moving forward. Again, thank you. Certainly the City Council appreciates all the team effort here, and I know that moving forward when we have our meetings, we'll continue to praise every city department here, so we appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Well, thank you. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but the lights have flickered a couple of times here, so there's something else we got to deal with. I'll be happy to take your questions. Karis.
What's the extent of the flooding in the south end, any damage caused by that?
So about 6 o'clock last night, we had about a foot of water at the base of Padenham Avenue, right on the South Dartmouth line. And we were concerned that that was going to creep up the street by the time high tide arrived at 8 o'clock. And so we, the police department, the fire department, knocked on doors to let people know that the water might be coming. Fortunately, it didn't. We were down there for 2 hours, and the water just didn't creep any further than where it was at 6 o'clock. So that was a surprise, and but I think we managed it pretty well. It had been suggested that we that I issue a mandatory evacuation order for that area as well as on East Rodney French Boulevard. I didn't think that made sense because I think we were in a position to manage the situation, and we did. On East Rodney French Boulevard, by the way, it had probably about 2 inches of water across the road right by Rodney Metals, Teledyne, right that area over there, Davies Locker. Anybody else?
Is there any other shoreline damage you can report on, either Fort Rodman?
We had a little bit. Larry, do you want to talk about the damage down at the Military Museum?
Thank you, Mayor. As of this morning, it appears that we have minor damage to maybe 6 city buildings, most of it roof-related. The most notable would be the Military Museum, which is right on the shoreline at the harbor, the outer harbor. So some copper damage and some lifting shingles and so forth, but it's again minor damage, 6 buildings. We're going to be taking a look at the beaches on both East and West Rodney French today. The water on West Rodney French Boulevard was right to the top of the seawall, so the entire beach was underwater at high tide last night. And at East Beach, the water came up just short of the wall, just short of the 2 building structures that are there. But again, we don't know how much of the beach was damaged, but most of the damage that we incurred is the loss of trees throughout the city.
Thanks, Larry.
Thank you.
We also had some damage to one of the buildings at the sewage treatment plant as well.
Is the hurricane barrier and the street gates, are those back open now?
The street gates were open as of 11 last night, and where's Jeff? Well, pending Coast Guard approval, the navigational gates at the head of the harbor will be open.
So those are still closed?
So those are still closed, and they're being opened and closed to manage tidal flows. Okay, anybody else? All right, great, thanks. Go ahead, Karis. I knew you had one more.
The shelter, I know you said the folks from Penn are Keith. Do you have any sense of when that shelter will remain open until, or timeline on
Well, we're dealing with the Red Cross right now to see whether we can place them, if not back in the apartment, then at a Red Cross facility somewhere. Cynthia, do you have an update on?
We're still waiting for the Red Cross.
Yeah.
But they'll stay at Keith until they get there.
Yeah.
Salvation Army will come by lunch.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone.